What's going on, guys? I thought I'd talk about FI, introverted feeling, in the blind spot position. So it can manifest as not really knowing how you feel about things. So, for example, people, like, do I like this person? Do I not like them? Or do they like me? Or do we get along with each other? Say you're joking around with your friends and the jokes start getting a little bit more serious and harsh, and kind of not knowing the line of how far is too far when joking around with someone. So kind of not being aware of your own boundaries as well as other people's, and seeing other people talk about their own kind of core values or ethics, and often kind of assuming that they must be doing it for some kind of like social leverage, like virtue signaling. Like, if you're a good person, then do you really need to tell people that you're a good person? Do you need to film yourself giving donuts to a homeless person or something? I don't know. But the thing is, this line of how far is too far is subjective. So what's offensive to one person is innocuous to another. And so when I see myself as just one person, so why is my subjective opinion any more important than anyone else's? So it's like, I don't put any more weight on my own feelings than anyone else's. I see myself as like just a single data point, so I do have feelings, I have very strong feelings, but, if I feel offended by something and no one else does, then I see myself as the anomaly, and I have to ask myself, like, why? What is it about me that makes me offended and yet no one else is? So I don't put any more weight on my own feelings than anyone else's. And it can be quite frustrating in a way. It's the blind spot. It's like a self-imposed trap. I don't allow myself to engage in my own feelings. In a way, I see it as self-indulgent. Why would I be so pretentious to think that my own feelings are so important above everyone else's? You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of, this is a bit of a crass analogy, but it's a little bit like seeing a morbidly obese person just like shoving cake in their throat, and that that you'd feel like, oh, that's kind of revolting. That's what I think of when I imagine like engaging my own feelings. It's like, ugh. It's like, I feel like I'm doing other people a favor by not using FI, because whether or not I can relate to you personally doesn't affect the way that I ought to engage with you. And I'm not saying that it doesn't, because I do have FI and I'm not aware of my own FI. So it probably does affect the way I engage people, but I try very hard to not let it do so. And then that would mean, for example, holding your best friend to the same standard as your worst enemy, the same impersonal standard. Allowing yourself to get biased by something. And you're trying very hard to be detached. But then again, I also have FE, extroverted feeling, in my stack. And isn't FE a subjective function? Yes, because it's dealing with value judgments and worth. And FE and FI are both subjective, but FE is an interface function, so it's a way of engaging with people, but it's a bit like a one-size-fits-all approach in a way. And there is an underlying assumption, which is that all people are equal. If I'm engaging with people in the same way with my FE, then there's an assumption that all people are equal, And if you're an FI user, you might have very different ways of engaging with people that you like versus people that you dislike, which is what gives introvert feelers more of a polarizing quality to them, and also being FE, you're more likely to give behavioral critiques of people, such as you're being very rude or you're coming off like an arsehole, rather than a dislike for someone at their core. Like, just, I fundamentally, viscerally don't like you. Like, that's more FI. Just like you as a human being, just your just irreducible features. I just hate you. That's FI. And having FI as a blind spot, I would never kind of think of it that way. Even if you take it to like an extreme state, where if you imagine like a homicidal, like ENTP or ESTP, that went on some like murderous killing spree, and then I just imagine them being in the interrogation room, and being asked like, why did you kill all these people? And they're just like, I don't know. I just did it. I just felt like it. It's like nothing is personal. Even if it is personal, you're just so unaware of your own inner motivations that it might as well not be. It's just like, I just did it. The same way that my heart is beating and it just does it. I just went on a murderous killing spree. Maybe there's a bit of like stupid way of saying it, but the thing is, like, you're treating people like they don't really have a kind of core self, So it's like you're treating people like objects, which maybe sounds slightly sociopathic, but it's like you have a conscience. You're just not as fully aware of it, and sometimes it can slap you in the face quite hard, with sometimes strong feelings of guilt and shame, or even self-hatred, that can kind of just come out of seemingly nowhere, and not being able to handle it. So the blind spot is a function that it's a weakness. It's a weakness. But yeah, I think this idea that a person has this personal agency, that in a way, I don't know if other people with FI as their blind spots see things this way, but in a way I really don't think of people as having free will. So as a result of that, if free will doesn't exist, then that means that people can't be blamed for things. That means that people can't be accountable or responsible for things. It means that blame doesn't exist. Which sounds, I don't know, maybe you think that's ridiculous. Some people probably agree with it, but I think of that as being to do with my FI blind spot. I really see nothing as personal, even if I feel very emotional and I'm about to stab you in the face because of how angry I am. It's like I promise that it isn't personal. But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching.